Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Bloom Seed Library podcast. I'm your host, Dave Maxwell, and I'm also the founder and president of the Bloom Seed Library in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. The purpose of our podcast is to provide you with information about gardening, biodiversity, seed saving, permaculture, and other topics that may be useful to you as a gardener or a seed saver. In our first episode, we explained what a seed library is and what you can typically experience. We also provided you with information about our seed library, its programs, and things to come. This episode is sponsored by Music Together of Bloomsburg. Music Together classes build on your child's natural enthusiasm for music and movement. They help you provide your child with the basic musical skills needed to enjoy school, social music activities, and to study an instrument should he or she choose to do so. Experience Music Together and find out how important and how fun your role can be. For more information and registration, please visit musictogetherofbloomsburg.com. Today, we have a special privilege in this episode to have a guest, Eric Wunsch. Eric was an actor in the Bloomsburg Theatre Ensemble here in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, and provided our community with masterful acting in numerous productions that entertained and benefited our community. Eric had a change of career about 2 years ago that led him to be an assistant farm manager at Kimberton CSA. The Kimberton CSA is a 10-acre biodynamic organic mixed vegetable farm in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. We're going to chat about Eric's life, what he has experienced in his new career, and provide pieces of information that you may find useful in understanding how farms, CSAs, and gardening works. Eric, welcome. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Dave.
It's been quite a while since I've seen you.
It's good to be had.
Indeed. So you were a beloved member of the Bloomsburg Theatre Ensemble here in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. And for listeners that have seen you on stage and are excited to get caught up on your path over the last few years, could you give us a summary of your journey from Bloomsburg to where you are currently?
Sure. I will try to both be brief and give lots of shout outs because there's so many people who've helped me and I'm grateful for them and it's worth saying their names somewhere. Sure. That's being recorded.
Sure.
During the pandemic, I had gotten, briefly laid off from the theater and I was at a point in my life where I was feeling kind of depressed and frustrated. Before that, and the pandemic certainly exacerbated that. And I was really looking for not only a career change, but just something to really shake up my life.
Sure.
And I was fortunate to get the opportunity to start a homestead, like large vegetable and flower and herb garden on my friend John Noonan's parents. His parents are Susan Noonan and Tom Noonan. Their land in Danville, Pennsylvania.
Sure.
And so I got completely obsessed with researching gardening and got lots of help from folks like you, Dave. You gave me a lot of my first seeds, and seeing your garden was a big inspiration for why I even wanted to try doing this.
That's great.
As well as my friend Mike Jones and my friend Sarah Fote and lots of others who I just was like, wow, growing your own food is awesome. Right. I'm a person, I love eating, I love cooking.
Right.
And I love being outside. And so it's just a natural outgrowth of that over time was wanting to grow food. And you guys, I think, really not only inspired me, but helped me in both physical and, mental ways about approaching it.
That's great.
So thank you. Thank you. I get to say it in person, sort of. So anyway, all you guys and so many other friends helped me create this big homestead garden, and I got really kind of interested in organics and, in soil gardening and growing food. And it was just, I had a blast with it the first year I did it and really built something kind of large and special. It was very ambitious, I think, and really tried to squeeze in so much reading and knowledge that I think people would get over many years.
Right.
And as part of that, my friend John and I were kind of like non-seriously tossed around the idea of starting a farm, like not even really knowing what that meant. And I started to kind of research that on YouTube, and I read a book about it. And while it seemed completely impossible, and I was definitely way not ready to do something like that, I was really intrigued by hearing from the kinds of people who did it and the kinds of issues and approaches that these folks who do market gardening and sustainable farming, what their work is like and what their life is like. And I remember talking to a therapist who was like, you should try farming. You keep talking about it. And I was like, no, that's silly. And then my friend, who was my former coworker, Laurie McCants, who was one of the founders of the Bloomsburg Theatre Ensemble, as well as the network of ensemble theaters, knew I was kind of going through this professional thing and this hobby thing. And we were talking, and she said, have you ever heard of this theater company called Farm Arts Collective? And I said, no, I don't know what that is. And she said, well, it's this couple, and they have a farm in Damascus, Pennsylvania, and they also have a theater company. You should talk to them. So I looked it up, and basically the deal is that Will-O-Wisp Organic Farm is like in between 20 and 30 acres of mixed fruits, vegetables, and flowers that are being farmed organically on the Pennsylvania border to New York on the Delaware River. Right. And they sell to high-end farmers markets in the lower Catskills in New York City and to fine dining in New York City. So they're kind of super high-end in terms of organic, small-scale farming. And that farm is run by a guy named Greg Schwartz, and his partner, Tanis Kowalczyk, is also a farmer as well as a theater artist. And she started this company, Farm Arts Collective, that has residents at Will-O-Wisp Organic Farm. And there's all sorts of collaborations and creations that this company does centered around ecology, around agriculture, and around local arts, all of which are things that I like.
It's a blend of all of your interest and skills.
And so I met, check, right? So I met Tanis, and we kind of instantly seemed to get each other, and I approached her with the idea of working at Greg's farm, Will-O-Wisp Organic Farm, as a field worker and working with her theater company. And I think there have been a couple people in the past who had done some version of that. And so I signed on to do that for a season. And I had kind of been gardening in my second year, and I left that with a friend of mine named Aaron Eldred. He took care of it for a little while I went to Damascus, Pennsylvania, and worked at Will-O-Wisp and with Farm Arts Collective. And Will-O-Wisp Organic Farm, especially now that I've worked at other farms and seen a lot of other farms, it's just a sort of immaculate, diverse production machine. It's something to marvel at in the sense of its quality and its efficiency and its diversity and what its client base is. The discernment, I guess, or sophistication of their clients. So that summer, I learned a lot. I learned how much I did not know. I got my butt whooped. I got taught a lot by the folks who worked on the crew. Especially there were these two families I worked with who lived in the area, as well as this guy who was the crew leader. His name was Jay Ledoux, and he's an excellent farmer and grower of trees and perennials. And the folks I lived with, John Bachman, who is the assistant manager there, and his partner, Adrian Picciano, who runs a landscaping and gardening company in the area called the Dirt Diva. And these people, wow, I'm so lucky I got to work with them. Wow, they're so smart. Wow, they just were so nice to me when I was so naive and just coming at something like a crazy person. And so even though it was that summer really kicked my butt, I couldn't let it go. I had to keep going. And not only did I have to keep going, I had to get to a place where I could have a position of responsibility and feel like I knew what I was doing.
Right.
And so I went back to Bloomsburg for a little bit after that season to kind of figure out what to do next and what me and my partner were going to do. And I lived with my buddy, John Noonan, again, who was, God,
John's great.
Just made my life possible in so many ways. And you introduced me to John.
Yeah, John and I grew up together. John's a great guy.
He really, him and his family really made so much of this possible. And anyway, I was back in Bloomsburg, and some of the things I did while I was there was I worked kind of the fall into winter season at a little market garden in Catawissa called Gibbs Farm.
Okay.
That's run by Gibby Knoble.
Oh,
And my
okay.
farm manager and friend Liz Chimuris was my boss, and she is a wonderful person and very, very intelligent. And Gibbs is like a really charming, interesting little spot. And again, I was just really lucky to land there and have a place to learn and keep working and keep doing it. And I also did some like landscaping and nursery work with Jarrell Marquez Harper,
Right.
who runs a company there in Bloomsburg called Seeds of Faith. And also, I'm just going to say it over and over again. Also, just a great,
Yeah.
beautiful, sweet guy.
Drill.
He and his family were great to me, and he taught me a lot and helped me out a lot, and we had a good time together. So yeah, shout out to Liz and Jarrell. And then I was looking for a place where I could apprentice and where I could grow, and the timing was such that I reached out to Kimberton CSA, and there was really a little bit of a personnel shift, and the owner, Frank Carrillo, who's my current employer, was, really looking to find a person who could step up into some responsibility. And I had some experience and was eager, and we, seemed to like each other, upon meeting and talking about what I was interested in doing, which was having kind of year-round employment and being able to really grow in a place. And so he was willing to take me on in that capacity. And not only that, Kimberton CSA shares land with Seven Stars Farm, which is a dairy farm that makes yogurt.
Oh, wow.
And there's a farmhouse on that land. And so Seven Stars Farm are my landlords, and I walk 2 minutes to work. So not only did Frank help me get this job at his farm, but he kind of led me to a really great housing situation that kind of made it all possible.
That's
Because
great.
Phoenixville is a very awesome area outside Philly, but it's expensive,
Right.
especially if you work in farming.
Right.
So I feel really lucky, and there's so many more people I could shout out to, but to answer your first question, that is how I got from working at the theater to farming, where I am right now as the assistant farm manager of Kimberton CSA. That's how I got.
That's great. That's quite a journey. And it's interesting too to hear the story, and it seems like almost like a path sort of opened up in front of you that just kept you going down this path. It just seems like everything was sort of destined to be that way based on what you're saying.
I had to say yes and kind of trust a lot of situations, and I think I've been really lucky that the people I've really put my faith in and have really helped me and have gotten me into the place that I think I was trying to get into initially.
That's great. That's absolutely great. And so you worked at a couple of different places, and so now you're at Kimberton CSA. Could you explain sort of the difference in Kimberton CSA compared to the other farms that you worked on? It seems like it's smaller than the initial place you worked, maybe a little different than the second place. But what makes it different than other places that you worked?
Yeah, it's definitely right. It's in between the sizes of those two farms. It's about 10 acres. I think we farm like 7 or 8 of them. I mean, on one level, a big difference is that it's a CSA.
Right.
It's not about selling wholesale to restaurants or vendors, nor is it about farmers markets. We do a farmers market in Lansdale, but our main business is that we are a CSA, which is community supported agriculture for those who are not familiar with the term. The way our CSA works is that you sign up for a season that goes from late May until late November. And you either have the option to pick up once a week or once every other week. And we give you 10 different vegetables that are bunched or in a certain weight. And we also have a really robust you pick selection where you can walk around the farm with your friends or your family and pick herbs and strawberries and cherry tomatoes and peas and huge bouquets of flowers, hot peppers, shishito peppers, green beans, all
Oh,
kinds of
wow.
stuff.
That's fantastic.
So that's something that I think is not only unique compared to the other farms, but unique for CSAs and farms in general to have this kind of big U-pick aspect where people get to walk around the farm and see what it looks like and pick stuff for themselves. Um, and what's cool, Kimberton CSA has a big history. Frank is like in the third set of owners, but it was, I think, the first CSA in
Oh,
Pennsylvania
wow.
and one of the first in the country.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Um, yeah, and it's been in this kind of long-term lease agreement with the Kimberton Waldorf School across the street,
Oh, okay.
same as Seven Stars Farm, for decades and decades. And so it's cool. It's a farm that has some history and some real community around it. And, people, 3 days a week during the main season, people come to our farm and they get to choose which bunches or which
Right.
vegetables they want of each kind. And those things change throughout the season. And we get to talk to them sometimes and interact with them and, set up a nice space for them. And that's a really neat aspect of it where you really get to feel the rewards of that and get to kind of provide a diverse palette of things without the same demands that selling at a farmer's market or
Right.
selling to restaurants might
Right.
have. You get to kind of try more, try different things, and people get to experiment with vegetables or kinds of produce maybe they've never seen or never tried.
That's interesting. I noticed with us, we grow, we grow our own vegetables and flowers, but there are certain things that either take up too much space in our garden uh, or we just don't really have a lot of success growing. And so we had used CSA before, but we're looking at that again. And I think CSAs can be really helpful for people who try to garden to sort of supplement their, local gardening needs. And it helps to support the local community, in my opinion, because it kind of keeps food local. You're not getting food shipped from halfway across the country if you can get it at your local CSA or your local farm. So I think that's
Yeah,
interesting.
I'm glad you like that and feel that way. I feel that way too. I think an aspect of this whole journey that's been really cool is like kind of plugging into a few different local food economies and seeing how rewarding that is and
Right.
delicious it is. Um, and yeah, I think it's really hard in a garden setting unless you have a lot of time
Right.
to grow enough produce to feed your whole family for a whole year. And you need a lot of infrastructure to be able to do that.
Right. Right.
And so, that's why you have farms because,
Right.
we have both the space and the infrastructure and the labor to keep the vegetables coming and keep things coming at diversities and, do the kind of large scale fertility and pest control work that
Right.
ensures the best yields possible.
I
That doesn't mean things don't fail. Things fail all the time.
right.
It's a part of growing plants.
I noticed when I first looked at CSAs, there was a bit of sticker shock when I saw what the price was. I thought, wow, that is incredibly expensive for a bag of vegetables each week. Until I actually sat and priced out what vegetables actually cost at the grocery store, and so when I sat and priced it out and totaled what I would be buying, what I would spend at the grocery store for what I would get organic at a CSA, it was always more expensive at the grocery store. But seeing that price of the ones that I looked at locally where you pay the one price for the entire season seemed like so much. But I definitely encourage people to examine, if you're a person who eats vegetables and you like eating healthy and like eating organic, it seems like a lot up front, but break that down and compare it to what your local grocery store is. Because I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked when I first looked at that with pricing.
Yeah, you know what? I've talked about this with my employer, and if you do a full share, meaning you pick up every week, it breaks down to something like for 26 weeks, it's like $40 a week. But if you took every thing we give out that week, you're getting like $100 worth of organic
Right.
vegetables. And then once you get into the you pick stuff, like the cherry tomatoes and the strawberries and the flowers, like
Oh, right.
you're getting like $200, $300 worth of organic produce in a week, and you're paying $40 for it. So yeah,
Right.
I I hear what you mean, and as a person that is scared of spending money, I kind of feel you. Which is why I think we have lots of options. Like we have these partial shares and stuff. There's all
Right.
these ways to get in that feel, I think, a little like less of a big commitment. So you can see if you like it.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely think liking to cook and liking to eat really helps.
Does the Kimberton CSA do or connect anybody with any kind of programs for recipes or cooking or anything like that, or is that anything in the works? And if not, do you know of any other sources outside of people sort of Googling recipes that are kind of good for that?
I think the way it works is so the members of our CSA get an email like every week or every 2 weeks, and it says what's going to be in the share,
Oh, okay.
and it's like a list of items. And if you click the item, it will click over to like a page that has a few
Oh, that's
recipes
fantastic.
that involve that item. I also like, it's just a thing you end up talking about with the people who come through the farm and like your coworkers and stuff when you're working at a farm. Like, what do you like to do with this vegetable?
Right.
And again, I love to cook, and the free vegetables are awesome for my life.
Yeah.
Me and my partner use them every day.
Yeah.
And so, you figure out how to use them. And, most vegetables are really good,
That's
I
true.
think.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't have better advice than Googling it, unfortunately. I do that all the time. I also, I'm a little ashamed to say that I watch a good amount of like cooking TikTok.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I do, I
And
do that
that
too.
sometimes inspires me lately. Yeah.
It's a good source, honestly, because something I like about TikTok and cooking TikTok, and because I've started to sort of get into that too, is it's the little short format inspiration. So there are a lot of recipes I've
Yeah.
been trying lately based on just these little moments, of just checking something on my phone. So that is interesting. I kind of thought, I mean, I know people do it, but it's nice to hear
Yeah.
that other people do that too. Um, so what have you found? So this is interesting when you were saying earlier that you worked hard that first year and you had a lot to learn, and so it made me curious. What have you found working in CSAs or any of the other types of farms you've worked on that differs the most from what your expectation of it would be?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I think it's a good question to put to people who are interested in farming, because
Right,
I think there is a reality to it that you do have to be into this part or you may not be into farming,
right,
and that's okay. Um, a lot of people get into farming, and I got into farming because I really liked growing food and plants. And that is a really big part of farming,
right,
obviously. But another part of farming is understanding how to implement systems and use tools that help to keep your soil fertile and ready to plant in, to cultivate and do different kinds of weed control, to fertilize, to you know propagate, to transplant, to do everything you're doing in gardening on a really big scale and ensure its success to the best of your ability. And that is a very physical task
right,
and requires knowledge and experience with certain tools and with just using your body and being in the elements.
right,
And there is something that I didn't quite realize getting into farming of especially this kind of farming, like small scale sustainable agriculture, um, that is very athletic in a way.
I see. Yeah,
And my body and my mind and my hands and my eyes have changed so much since I started doing all of this. Um, so if you don't like working outside and physically working your butt off and keeping your mind on lots of different things at once and doing tasks that can be tedious and difficult and like you got to kind of get into it
right,
and find what's fun about learning those efficiencies, learning how it works, learning your body, learning how to go fast, learning how to see things that you could never see as quickly or easily before. That's what working on a farm is all about. And one of the main things I do at our farm is I train and work with our field crew, most of which every season have at most, one other season of experience with our farm or a different farm, but usually are just doing it for the season. There are folks who are interested in trying it out. And so they've never done it. And so to teach those people and to work with them and try to get them to work as hard and as quick and as intelligently as possible is tricky. And I think it's the thing that kind of keeps me coming back now is learning about how farms really work. And every season I've done in terms of growing and the weather and the people I've worked with have been totally different.
Oh, that's interesting.
And each season I learn more and I get stronger and I get faster and I see things in new ways. And so, yeah, that's a really long answer to your question, but basically it's like I didn't know anything about farming when I got into it, really. And I've just been lucky that I've gotten thrown into situations where I was able to learn fast. And I think I got kicked to the ground a lot of times just by myself when I first started in terms of not feeling like I could do it. And I became really determined to transform myself to be able to do it because I wanted it so bad.
Yeah.
Seeing people and working with people who were good at it was inspiring to me. And so it's a cool time to get into small scale, regenerative agriculture. There's so many words for it, organic agriculture. Because there's a lot of young people who are younger than me, who are my age, who are making a career transition or starting new careers, who are doing this, who are starting new businesses and new organizations that are trying to get people good food and good produce in cool ways. And these people are motivated and smart and friendly. And it's a really exciting time to be in this little industry.
That's fascinating. And it seems like from what you're saying, you had to sort of learn to cultivate yourself as well as the fields and sort of help yourself grow in these different directions. That's interesting.
Yeah. Today I was transplanting all day on my knees, I was doing strawberry crowns and then scallions. And, I must have transplanted thousands of plants today. And I was kind of thinking earlier today about how hard a whole day of something like this was for me when I first started. I mean, it was really hard.
Right.
And now it's still hard, but I can get through it and physically and mentally in a totally different way. It just takes time. And it's funny because I see, some of our new employees, like I said, kind of realizing what have I got myself into? Some days they love it, and some days they're on their hands and knees doing this hard thing all day.
Right.
It's exhausting. It can hurt a little, and it's repetitive, but it's for a good cause, and it's something you kind of fall in love with.
Yeah, it sounds really rewarding, and it seems like it would feel good, sort of connecting with the community and having a direct impact on the health and sort of happiness of the community through the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I'm really stoked that people like this business and are loyal to this area and the local food economy here in Phoenixville and this little area, Kimberton. I'm still relatively new to the area, so I'm still meeting a lot of those people, but I'm grateful to have landed on literally fertile ground and then also socially fertile
right. And do you start from seed for the CSA usually? Do you start in greenhouses earlier in the season?
Yeah, so I would say almost everything we start from seed except for strawberries and sweet potatoes, which we start from crowns or slips. But everything else we start from seed in our prop house. And we grow a pretty big diversity of flowers, vegetables, and a little bit of herbs and fruit.
That's cool. So, you've been doing this, it's 2 years now, I believe. Is that correct? 2 years you've been
going into my third year of farming.
In your third year?
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself in this field in the next few years? What direction can you see where you're going into this?
Wow, I don't know. I'm still, when I came to work at Kimberton CSA, the idea was that I'd work here for a few years and kind of slowly, move my way up and get to learn along the way and that might kind of lead to whatever the next thing is. And I still have a lot that I want to learn about bigger machinery operation. I can use like BCS two-wheel tractors, which is like a tiller mower sort of device that looks
Right.
a lot like a tractor, and like weed whackers and those kinds of implements and some irrigation stuff. But I have a big deficit when it comes to using tractors and certain kinds of bigger machinery and tools of those kinds, and using them on a farm scale as well. So it's like I use them a tiny bit, but I have a lot to learn there. So I still want to do that. Um, but I've never, it's hard. I've never really owned anything. So the idea of owning a farm as a business or a piece of land is really intimidating to me, even though I know a lot more about how that might work. The more I know, the more I'm like, oh man, so many things can go wrong.
Right.
Oh wow, I'm so glad I don't, like own a farm right now because sometimes it's a little stressful and
Right.
scary. Honestly, I like my heart and admiration goes out to everybody who is an owner. It's so intense.
Right.
Um, so I would love to, maybe keep moving up in the world of farming, in the world of sustainable farming. I'm not getting any younger, and at a certain point physically, I don't think I'll be able to do what I can do now. And I don't know how long that could take because I know people who are 20 years older than me who are incredible out
Right.
in the field. So, maybe that's something that's possible. I don't know. Um, but I would love to keep working in this world, whether that manifests itself at a farm or at some kind of nonprofit that has like a farming agritourism educational component. That stuff
Interesting.
really interests me. Permaculture-y things interest me. There's all kinds of nonprofits and institutions that do like really interesting things. So I feel so grateful for all the people who've taught me things, and I just find it like there's so much to learn. You could never learn it in your lifetime once you
Right.
start getting into plants, and food, and outside this, the world, the natural world. And I love teaching people and I love learning. And so if I could keep doing that with regards to the natural world and growing food, that would be really cool. I don't know how to answer that question any better than that one.
That
I
sounds
want to keep
ideal.
going in this direction. I I don't know exactly where yet, but I
Right.
do think eventually I'll want to make some kind of like lateral move just to protect my body.
Right.
Um, honestly, it's hard,
Yeah.
it's hard. Um,
Well, it seems like
and
you were saying before, a lot of these things just sort of it seems like they opened up in front of you. So I'm sure over the next couple of years, additional opportunities will keep opening up. You've always seemed like the kind of guy who good things sort of open up to, and you can kind of just float in that direction. So
that great. I hear that. I think that's true. I feel very grateful. A lot of people have been really nice to me in my life through all sorts of phases. Um, and so I don't know if it's that opportunities open up or that there are just a world of incredible, inspiring, generous people out there. And that I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of them.
well, I think the metaphor of sort of you reap what you sow, I think applies to you. I think you're a good guy, and you've always been a good guy in my experience. So I think that this sort of this is sort of a cheesy metaphor, but the seeds that you've planted of goodness in the world seem to kind of pop up for you. I hope that keeps happening.
Thanks, Dave. That's so sweet. This is
Sure.
great. I'm having a great time.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
I think I said the word great like a lot.
It's a good word. It's a great word.
It's a great word.
I wanted to ask, so taking from the knowledge you've acquired in the last few years in this field, what advice would you give to anyone looking to follow a similar path that you followed to get into this work?
Oh, wow. Yeah. You mean like farming specifically or just growing food?
I would say growing. I would say getting into sort of the small farming, such as the CSA, or even the larger farm that you first started into. Like if someone was looking to move into this field, is there anything that you looking back you could say, I wish I had that advice when I went into this direction?
Um, One, I think that having some base knowledge of growing food or plants or you doing kind of outdoor physical labor is very helpful going into it, whether it's one of those things or a combination of those things. And the other thing is, research and visit places. There's more and more of these small farms popping up everywhere. And there's all kinds of stuff online on YouTube. There's all kinds of great books. There's these kind of classically known books about small farming by guys like Elliot Coleman or Jean-Martin Fortier. Um, there's so many. There's a lot of resources out there to learn what it is. And so, like I say, one is any kind of related experience is good and will help accelerate your knowledge of what's happening when you're on a farm,
Right.
and the whys and what fors, as well as, yeah, I think looking it up, like kind of trying to self-educate.
Right. Sort of be prepared and ready. It seems like what you're saying. That's interesting. And I do appreciate your time, and I have a million questions I could ask you, but I have one last question, because I know you've had a tough day, as you said, with your strawberries. But from what you've learned since you started this journey, what advice could you give to just basic gardeners, people who have a home garden, that could help them produce better, healthier plants? Basically, what have you learned in this world or field that could apply to the small gardener looking to sort of do a better job in their home garden?
Hmm. Wow, there's so many things I could say. I think the advice I guess I would give is like seek advice.
Ah,
There's all kinds of,
that's interesting.
people out there who love gardening, who love farming. There are groups on all kinds of social media and all kinds of videos and all kinds of things that um, where people like are really eager to teach you and show you things.
Right.
And I think just gobble it up, devour it, because the more you learn and the more you see, the more all of it will start to make sense. And the other thing that I think people tried to tell me when I first started gardening, but I had to see it for myself, is like, it's not as deep or difficult as you think it is
Right.
in some cases. And like plants really want to grow.
Right.
Um, so don't feel the need to be precious. Like explore, have fun, try things
Yeah.
to the best of your resources or ability. I think if I could go back, there's so many things I would have tried in the first year, even though I did a lot. There's so many more things I would have just been like, yeah, I'll give this a try.
Right.
If I had known how easy it was going to be in some cases. I don't think farming is easy, and I don't even always think gardening is easy. It's just that if you're just trying to grow some food and grow a plant, to give it a try, it's pretty easy.
Right.
Like seeds and plants want to grow.
Right.
Uh, I also think, this is kind of a side thing, but like whether you're building a raised bed or using garden soil from like your backyard, I think versus gardening in a pot or hydroponically, I think if you can garden using the actual soil and like create a relationship both with yourself and with the create a relationship with building soil and building life, right where you live, that not only like benefits the microbiome that is that soil and the
Right.
environment that is your yard or whatever, but it's really rewarding
Right.
to build soil, to work with the soil where you are or where you're growing. So I don't know if that's advice exactly. I just think that's a way I accidentally started, and that part was the coolest part of it
Yeah.
to me. It's like, wow, the things the soil can do,
It's science.
all the complex things going on in there.
Right. Yeah, I think that's good advice. And I just want to remind listeners, as part of the purpose of the seed library is that if you want to experiment, you can go check out seeds that might be intimidating and try it. And if it fails, you're losing nothing out of your pocket. With the seed library, it's free membership. So if you've always wanted to try corn, but you're not willing to go spend $5 for organic corn, just check out the seed library. Try a variety of different things. You might find out that you absolutely love it. There are definitely things that when I first started gardening, I had never tried in my life. And, now I'm fairly good at it just by completely experimenting with no information whatsoever. So that's part of the fun of having a seed library. So Eric, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here, sharing your information. It's really great to catch up with you. I do 100% believe that no matter where you go, Bloomsburg will always hold you in high esteem and will always be grateful for you. So again, thank you so much for your time. And I'm really excited to see what happens in the next couple of years with you.
Thanks, Dave. You rule, dude.
Thank you so much. And for those that want to learn more about the Kimberton CSA, please visit kimbertoncsa.org. That's KIMBERTONCSA.org. We thank you for listening to our podcast. Remember that listening, sponsoring, and donating seeds and materials helps us maintain the seed library, support our community, and provide content like this podcast. For more information on the podcast, the Bloom Seed Library, and more, please visit bloomseedlibrary.org. And if you would like to reach to us for guest appearances, sponsorship, or simply to say hello, please email info@bloomseedlibrary.org. We wish you the best, and until next time, from the Bloom Seed Library, we wish you well.